Welcome to DABCC Radio,
where smart people listen.
Virtualization and Cloud Talk,
Featuring cutting-edge solutions from the hottest companies around the globe.
broadcasting from the DABCC offices in sunny Sarasota, Florida.
Surrounded by computers, books, and Legos.
A Microsoft MVP, Citrix Charter CTP, VMware vExpert.
And your host, Douglas Brown.
And welcome to another episode of DABCC Radio. I'm really excited to tell you, we have a great show for you today. And what we're doing is I've partnered with the folks at Citrix Ready, and they are going to, together, we are going to bring on a slew of Citrix Ready verified solutions of partners that are part of the Citrix Ready program, to interview them and introduce them to you guys or bring you up to date or whatever, right? And I'm really, really excited about this because it's just going to be a blast. And today we have the first of those episodes. So what do I say? This is going to be really, really excited. I've already recorded a couple of them, and there's many, many more to come. So on that note, today we are really, really lucky to have one of the, I'll tell you, they're the most recommended solution on the market today. I mean, is that something or what? The most recommended solution, the name of the company is called Pure Storage. And they just have an amazing solution that works with VDI and Citrix XenDesktop. And so we brought these guys on along with the Citrix Ready team, and we're going to talk about Pure Storage. The Citrix Ready guys are going to be on the line with us, and they're going to talk about the Citrix Ready program and how they're able to verify, or the process of verification and how that went with Pure Storage. And Pure has also brought on one of their customers, a school district, and the two main guys over there to talk about what it was like to actually deploy this in their environment and the benefits they received from it. I mean, this is going to be great, guys. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Like I said, this is the first of many, so definitely stay tuned to DABCC Radio. Tell a friend. We're going to rock it for a long time here with the folks from Citrix Ready. So with no further ado, let's just dive into my interview with Pure Storage, Citrix Ready. And here we go. Let's just dive into it. So as always, my first question is, who are you and what do you do? So I'll go around the horn and we'll take it from there, right? So let's start with the Citrix Ready guy. Sagnik, who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Sagnik. I'm based from Bangalore, India. I work for Citrix, which is based as a Citrix Ready technical marketing specialist for desktop ecosystem. I work with partners to get their partner verified products verified with Citrix for multiple Citrix products like XenDesktop, XenApp, and also for other ecosystems as well. So yeah, I love technology. I love food.
Right. You're too kind. I love technology. I love food. That's all you need, right? Joel, let's go to Joel next. Joel, who are you and what do you do?
In my defense, I also love both technology and food. I'm Joel McKelvey with Pure Storage, and we're based in Silicon Valley, California. At Pure Storage, I run the solutions function associated with virtualization and all our infrastructure solutions. So, virtual workspaces and desktops, virtual servers, and cloud, OpenStack, and a number of other types of functions at Pure.
Who do we have next here? We have Chris, our customer. We're going to get into, we have a couple customers on the line today, which is always neat because instead of the vendors sitting there squawking about how great we are, right? Which we are great. But now we have a customer to say how great we are. So Chris, who are you and what do you do?
Well, my name is Chris Dean. I'm the Director of Network Services for Judson Independent School District. My role is to manage a team of very smart individuals that maintain the servers, the routers, switches, security, pretty much anything behind the wall. That's where my team is involved. And our district is approximately 23,500 students and about 3,500 staff. So you can imagine we've got a pretty large role with a very small but extremely talented team.
That's phenomenal. But I worked. I've been doing what I do now at DABCC for 11 years, almost 12 years, and before that, I worked for Citrix for 3 years, and before that, I was a consultant. And in my consulting days, I actually worked a lot with schools, which was really interesting to go back to school from the other side of the table, so to speak, right? You got to go into the back offices, which I always thought were cool. And instead of being in trouble being in there, I was able to be there on the good side of things, and that was interesting. But it was really neat to see how schools do IT. So back then, they were extremely strapped, and today it's a lot better. Back then, it was the early days of really bringing IT into the classroom. So I'm really excited about having you guys on today, just from my experience of dealing with schools. So this will be very interesting. And you brought on Chris. You brought on one of your technical gurus, Marvin, with us. So Marvin, who are you, and what do you do?
Well, my name is Marvin Morrow, and I'm the systems engineer for network services. I pretty much maintain and take care of VMware, our storage systems, a little bit of AD, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and food. So
school food? No.
No good.
That's where we draw the line, right? Is that school food? That's okay.
Oh, yeah. Except for Pizza Day. Pizza Day is awesome.
Pizza Day.
It is.
I love Pizza Day. Okay, so let's get into this. What's great about this series I'm doing is Citrix Ready. I'm doing it with Citrix Ready, and they have sort of brought me in to interview a bunch of you guys, and I'm really excited about this opportunity, and because we get to hear not only about what you're doing, what the customers are doing, but also how you interact with Citrix and how you bring value to Citrix. So let's go over to Sagnik. And Sagnik, can you tell us real quickly about the Citrix Ready program? What is the Citrix Ready program?
Sure. So Citrix has strong expertise in virtualization and mobile workspaces. This is really our core and raison d'etre. However, many of our customers have diverse requirements for technologies and product that work over and above the base Citrix infrastructure. And this is where Citrix Ready comes in. The basic premise of the Citrix Ready program is to collaborate with the top technology companies to ensure that their products work in unison with Citrix products. And this eventually helps our customers adopt new products seamlessly.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. So what does the Citrix Ready verification of Pure Storage products mean to the customers? What's that? Maybe can you talk also about what is the verification program? I mean, what do they have to do to become Citrix Ready in the process?
Let me answer this in two parts. I'll elaborate the Citrix Ready verification process and then move to its eventual benefits to our joint customers. Now, Citrix Ready is a partner program where we verify third-party products and ensure their compatibility with Citrix technologies. This becomes even more crucial when an organization needs to scale their infrastructure. To make this work, we ensure that each Citrix Ready verified product undergoes a detailed testing and verification. This, in turn, helps the two technologies work in sync, so customers can have a smooth operation for their IT infrastructure. Pure Storage is a great case and example, right? So our joint customer, Judson Independent School District, has been using Citrix XenDesktop across the campuses. Although Citrix technology offered greater flexibility and efficiency for their virtual desktop infrastructure, their storage solution was pulling the performance down. Pure Storage came to our rescue, and helped them seamlessly scale their user base. Now, Chris and Marvin will talk more about this shortly, but what I did want to highlight, though, is how Pure Storage all-flash array underwent rigorous testing at our end to ensure compatibility with Citrix XenDesktop. So for our customers, we are trying to solve a big pain point by ensuring seamless integration of third-party products. And what this means for our customers is hassle-free adoption of products on top of the Citrix infrastructure.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I remember the days before Citrix Ready when it was like, okay, does it work? And then, then you just spend tons of time figuring out if it even works. And you guys took that hurdle away from us, and now it's just about, integrating, which is great. So let's jump over to Pure Storage. Joel, real quick before we get into some of the more specific questions, can you give us the overview? Who is Pure Storage?
Yeah, so Pure Storage is a mid-sized public company that sells all flash storage. And so, we pride ourselves in offering true all-flash storage solutions that are really based on a foundation, a founding tenet of simplicity, and helping people unlock the possibilities of what their IT can do, right, for their business. So we really pride ourselves in being a company that is easy to work with, and we find that reflected in the number of our customers who will recommend us. Right now, Pure Storage is the number one most recommended technology vendor on the planet, and that is due to great folks like Chris and others who try and use the product, find it simple and easy to use, easy to maintain, easy to manage, and we're willing to recommend us to their peers. So. Chris, you can keep me honest on all of this stuff, but what we're really trying to do is change the way that people buy and use storage by providing long-term operational models in addition to very high performance, high quality, simple to use storage.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I've heard nothing but great things about you guys. It's amazing. Really, truly great. And it's not just in general, but incorporated within Citrix XenDesktop. It just seems to be the go-to storage solution for XenDesktop, which is just phenomenal.
You're making me blush, Doug.
Oh, that's a good thing. So we're on audio only. That's the reason it's a good thing. So that being said, so people are flash is is solid state storage is all the rage nowadays. In fact, I just saw something that said next year the price of flash storage should be down into the cheaper than traditional hard drives and more plentiful, which is just a wonderful thing, right? So as customers are looking at VDI, why would they consider flash over a hybrid type of solution, and then in return, using what you guys bring to market?
Well, I definitely want to talk about what you said about pricing, because I think that is something that Pure has identified earlier on in this space than most of our competitors and imitators. And that's really what helps make buying flash viable. So if you're looking at a hybrid storage system today, you already understand the benefits of flash, right? It's high speed, it's low latency, it's dense, right? You can use less power, less cooling, etc. The reason why you don't decide to buy all flash, but instead you want to put some disk on there in addition to the flash historically has been two reasons. And those reasons are one, price, and two, reliability. There are several others, but those are really the two big ones. And just as an aside, Doug, I liken a hybrid solution to going hiking with my daughter, who is 5.
Yeah.
When the whole family goes hiking with my daughter, we do not hike at adult speed. We hike at 5-year-old speed. And that is what happens when you put disk right next to your flash. It doesn't really speed up the disk as much as it slows down the flash. So the reality here is most people buying a hybrid would buy all flash if they felt they could afford it or if it was reliable enough. And as you mentioned earlier, that price has come down radically. And it comes down for two reasons. One, Moore's Law, right? The price of the chips is coming down. But secondarily, the data reduction technologies that are in place, particularly at Pure Storage, bring the ability to deduplicate and compress data down and the price per gig much lower.
Absolutely.
So that's important. And then reliability is also an interesting question on this one. And the fact is that when you put flash into a system designed for disk, the system will treat it like it is a disk, and that results in unnecessary flash wear and early failures and a lack of reliability. So the two myths of flash, that it is more expensive and that it is less reliable, are really, in fact, based on systems which are not architected for flash. And that's why at Pure, we started from the very ground up, building a base which is flash specific, designed to provide the benefits of flash but also be extremely reliable and price effective, which is really, really important.
Absolutely, absolutely. Moore's law. You mentioned Moore's law. It's amazing. I think I say this almost on a daily basis. Talk about Moore's law nowadays. It's changing, or that simple idea, or law, I guess, if you want to call it that. It's Moore's law. From Internet of Things to big data, it's just everything is really converging because of the prices of and the prices that things have dropped, and the ability to make more things. I guess it's truly phenomenal what's going on today due to Moore's law. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, and you know what I mean. And again, Chris can chime in on here, but what we see is the result of those types of innovations, and really the big ones are sort of flash and more of a cloudy, big data approach to things, is changing how we have to look at IT a lot. Yeah. We have to make it a lot more flexible. We have to make it a lot more usable. And a big part of that is making it more of like a TV type of experience where you can press the button and it turns on immediately, reducing that latency, reducing the amount of time it takes to get things done. So it feels more on demand and more immediate. And that's kind of the position that Pure plays. And that's why we've been so successful in virtualization solutions like Citrix, and then on into people who are deploying things like software as a service models or cloud, because that model has really changed in how we deliver IT.
Perfect. So how does Pure help customers address issues when they're moving to VDI? Why would I, beyond what you've already said, and maybe give us some technical examples or what have you of what you guys are bringing to the table, that why a customer would be almost required to use a solution like yours, and particularly yours, for VDI implementation?
Sure. Well, I'll try not to get sort of too arcane into the storage side of things here. So if you believe, and I think it's pretty empirical, that flash is faster and more efficient ultimately, then the first one is going to be our data reduction technologies, which are roughly twice as effective as those of our closer competitors. What that does is it means you can store a lot more data on a lot less. That does two things. It brings the density and power consumption to better levels, right? But it also brings the price down. So while simultaneously the price of the physical chip is coming down, the amount that you have to actually store on that chip, the amount that you have to consume to save any one piece of information, is also going down. And those two trends are bringing the price down radically, and Pure is leading the charge on those. Now, there's a couple of other really interesting sort of deeper technical concepts that make sense in this space, right? That Pure is leading. One of them is the idea of scaling in a Citrix XenDesktop or a mobile workspace kind of an environment. This is a non-linear process on a spinning disk, right? The more things you add on, the more sort of geometrically the load occurs on the storage systems themselves. And that's just a fundamental fact, right? With an all-flash system like Pure's, it's very, very linear. So if you had, let's say, 100 or 200 desktops on a disk system, you would be able to double that, but it wouldn't take twice as much resource from the storage side. It would take, 2.4 times as much resource to double, roughly. And that's what we see statistically, is that twice as many desktops take about 2.4 times as much storage resource if you're using spinning disk. Now, twice as many desktops on Pure take twice as much storage capability. It's very linear. It's very predictable. That's incredibly, incredibly helpful. That's very cool. That makes a big difference. There's also a very interesting sort of host-based change that occurs when you put in low latency Pure storage. A lot of CPU time is spent waiting for data to process. And so you have these CPU queues that are sort of bringing in information that would be sourced off of storage. What we're finding is if you have storage that can serve that information faster, that you get greater CPU utilization on the hosts. And so we're in the process of really exploring this more greatly, and you'll see some white papers from us in the very near term. But what we're seeing is in real world situations, our customers are reporting that their CPUs are 90% utilized, and they'll put Pure in and they'll go down to about 50% utilized. So we're able to actually get more VMs per host than you would on a disk or a hybrid system as well. And so that is a huge benefit to someone who's trying to figure out how many desktops can they get in a rack, how many can they manage on their existing infrastructure, how do they scale it. Again, that host efficiency is really, really important. There's a bunch of other ones. We're greater than 5.9 reliable, so desktops are actually becoming, sort of this tier one really important workload so that you can keep your productivity up. I'm sure Chris will get a lot of lovely phone calls if there's downtime when his desktops go offline. Oh, yeah. And so that's really important. And then we have a couple of things that are really unique to us. The business model around Forever Flash, so you can buy your capacity once, not have to forklift upgrade it, and our support is really stellar. And Chris, you can keep us honest on all of these, obviously, but we think all those things kind of come together to make an all-flash system, particularly Pure, sort of that holy grail for a VDI deployment. And that drives the price per desktop down. It means your users are happier. It means they're more likely to adopt. And all of that comes together to making the VDI projects just more successful.
Okay, Joe, I have one more question for you before I get into Chris and Marvin, and that is, what does the Pure solution look like? Is it an appliance? Is it a virtual appliance? Can you describe the solution, and then maybe just real briefly what it takes to sort of put it into place?
Sure. So the Pure Storage Flash Array M, which is our current model of all flash storage system, is a 3U box, and in it you put a set of controllers, right? So there are redundant controllers in that system. There's a set of storage modules and power and a number of other things in there as well, right? So what you really have is this very simple to put in place 3U component that you would rack in your data center or in your wiring closet. And it's going to be able to, on its own or with some of the 2U expansion shelves we offer, serve between a quarter and a half a petabyte of data with hundreds of thousands of IOPS in this very, very small form factor. You can get, depending on your workload, but particularly with Citrix XenDesktop, if that is the workload, maybe a half a petabyte of storage in 11U. That's a hugely dense system. And one interesting fact about it, right, is to get all of that capacity in one place is only a few cables. The system runs on 110 current, so it doesn't eat a lot of power, about the same amount of power as, say, a toaster oven when it's running. So it's incredibly power efficient. It's very space efficient. It doesn't run very hot, so it's cooling efficient. And so physically, it's this relatively small system. And you can always go to purestorage.com and look at all the wonderful plugs and panels and screws and things there as well. But very small, very efficient, and remarkably small and efficient. We have a shiny bezel on the front of it, Doug, that glows with an orange light. And we did that on purpose because people were replacing 2, 3, 4, 6, in some cases 10 or more racks of storage with a 3U appliance. And the CIO would come into the data center and ask the storage admin where it was, and they couldn't find it because it was so small. So we made it glow so people could always see it when it's in the data center.
That's cool. This is one of those questions that I ask in the podcast because you don't get to see the thing, So it's like, hey, tell me what is this thing? What's it look like? Things like that. So physical and and technically, right? So good answer. So let's jump over to Mr. Customer, Chris and Marvin. I'm excited to hear about how your experience, because you guys are really you're the what is it, the leather to the road or whatever that phrase is, the shoe to the dirt. I don't know. So anyway, so guys, thank you for coming on here and chatting with us. This is going to be great. So tell us about your company and why you considered XenDesktop for your organization first and foremost.
Alrighty. Well, Judson is a K-12 organization. Basically, we were looking to cut costs, maintenance fees, technician upkeep times for a full desktop when we didn't really need a full desktop. I mean, say they just needed an office program because it was a BCIS class or internet research in the library. We didn't see the point of putting in a fully loaded licensed desktop when all they needed was an application. So these applications we used with Citrix, we did a full desktop and applications for employees. And it came into play because we could repurpose older desktops that had a kiosk-type web page, and it would use the online plugin without upgrading or replacing anything in that system, and it worked fine. We didn't have to purchase endpoints because of that. Since Citrix is a broker, we could also provide external access to a full desktop to students, teachers, admin staff, should they need that kind of access from home. We also use it administratively to access internal apps without having to use our VPN or log into yet a full desktop. And the added convenience was we could do it from our phones or our tablets or pretty much anywhere else.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Well, I'm sort of bought and sold on the whole remoting idea since the mid to late 90s, but it just makes so much sense. There's so many locations and especially in a school like what you guys are doing, where they don't need a full desktop, or physical hardware. They just don't need it, and it becomes more cumbersome for them and for you and in the whole nine yards. The idea of just being able to give them that desktop or that application anywhere, anyplace, anytime is still, I think, the greatest idea I've ever heard, other than the personal computer itself, right? I just absolutely
Exactly.
love it. But it comes down to, can we make this work? Can we give a user experience to the user, to your customers, your users, or students, teachers, faculty, what have you, right? And so that's the art, right? That's the art of the job is pulling that off. So I have to ask you, how did it go when you first did you try this first and then put in Pure later? Was Pure part of the architecture? How did the initial rollout go?
The initial rollout was without Pure. It was about 5 years ago. The POC went well. We were unable to, say, test it in a 25-station lab environment. Since we began with Citrix, it's 100% virtualized with VMware. We deployed it to a handful of labs at both high schools at the time, and the system seemed to slow down under a high load. We threw processors at it, memory at it. We spun up more servers so we could split the labs in half, and it would load balance between them. But we did all that, but logon times were still slow, and applications were sluggish. But overall, it worked. It did its job. And then later, we moved the backend to Pure, and everything was beautiful. Logon times went to under a minute with a couple hundred users at the same time, all logging in at once. This spinning disk seemed to be the problem.
Very interesting. Well, absolutely. That's yeah. It's always comes to. I mean, as Joel said, it always comes down to the slowest piece of your component is as fast as you move, right? And disk being the one thing that still physically moves, or did until Flash and companies like Pure came around. So you deploy this thing, you're having I wouldn't say some troubles, but things aren't working as well as they could possibly, or what your users would want, or what you definitely dreamed about. So you started looking into, okay, we have some problems, or things could be better. It's the storage. How did you come upon Pure? And how did that go?
I'll take that one, Marvin.
Okay.
As Marvin obviously bragged about Pure and its fanatical support, Marvin and I we're beating our heads against the wall, basically trying to figure out what we can do to resolve the situation, the slow response times, the overall sluggishness, and the user experience. And so we sat down and we did some searching, and we came across different iterations, kind of what Joel talked about. There's hybrid storage, which is a mixture of flash and spinning disk, and then we came across some all flash storage, and that was obviously new and seemed pretty cool. And we're like, okay, let's just give it a try. And so we actually had scheduled 3 different POCs with variations of the type of storage, hybrid being one of them, and then all flash storage. And it just so happened that Pure was the first one that came into play. Just due to timing and the reduced complexity, and no kidding, from when the installer showed up, we were up within a matter of 2 hours, and that includes monitoring it and alerting. Wow. And I kind of had to question it, because Marvin was there with the installer. They were working through it. All of a sudden, within 2 hours, I get this email, "Systems online," and I'm like, really? It was that quick? It was just kind of unreal, but we were online, ready to go. So, from that point on, I mean, we were like, hey, who are these other companies, to be honest with you, because they weren't all flash, they were hybrid, and for the simplicity, I mean, you couldn't beat it. I mean, someone like me who's not the smart guy, that's Marvin's job, can actually manage this environment.
That's amazing. Marvin, can you talk a bit about the process of putting this in? At 2 hours. I mean, that's phenomenal time to market. What was that 2 hours like? Can you condense that down into a couple minute explanation?
Yeah, basically I stood around and watched. Yeah, it was that simple. I helped them rack it. They were the full size servers, not the M, and wired it all up, wire cables, tied them into loops. Made everything look pretty in a rack environment. Ran the cables. We already had the core set up for the networking. We ran our fiber channel cables, and about an hour into it, I logged into my laptop, and he told me, he goes, configure your fiber channel. So I logged in and did it, and like Chris said, within 2 hours, we were ready to vMotion our storage from spinning disk to pure, and we did it later that afternoon is when we actually did that on a couple of labs just for a test, and it just screamed. It was really good. So
it took you longer to actually wire the box up than it took you to do anything else, is what you're telling me?
Yeah.
That's great. That is absolutely great. So once you wire the thing up, what's the process like to get the thing? What's the admin tool like? You know what I mean? So what do you do then?
It's actually extremely easy to use. I clicked on create the server, found my WWN. They popped up right there. Just click. That was done. Creating a cluster was just as easy. So I had already got a cluster, threw my hosts in it. The LUN provisioning was basically you just name it, give it the gig, hit OK, done. Rescan your storage on your data clusters, format them, pops right in. It's you don't have to worry about the tiering. You don't have to pin it to one or the other, or worry about slow speed if it's on tier 3 and not tier 1. It just all that confusion was gone.
That's phenomenal. That is so phenomenal. So
Doug, so Doug, just to interject briefly, one of the things we typically get from customers at the state that Judson was in when we first came in is a concern, because when they look in the management tool set, there just isn't that many things to switch off on. It looks like there's a lot missing if you're used to traditional storage where you have to manage things like alignment and tiering and RAID groups and right. Sure. And so it's just really, really simple. So the first thing that we not infrequently get told is, I'm worried that my user interface doesn't have some of the things it should have in it. What happened? And the answer is, well, you've repurposed sort of the power of Flash to make everything else easier. It's a different way of approaching the design question, right? Rather trying to make it just as fast, flat out fast as it can possibly be, which is very, very fast. The idea is to capture some of that capability, some of that performance capability, some of that processing capability, put it back into the system to just make it easier to run, rather than just straight up fast. It's kind of the difference between driving an F1 car on the track and just trying to get down to the market for some milk. You'd like your drive to the market to be as nice, fast, and as efficient as absolutely possible, but maybe you want it also to be kind of an easy thing to do.
Exactly. So, and engineers tend to like flashy knobs or flashy lights and shiny knobs or whatever, and but we don't need all that. If we can simplify it and just make it work, that's exactly, at the end of the day, allows us to do our jobs and move on to the next problem, right?
Well, and these guys can keep me honest as well, right? Since they know it way better than I do. I think what engineers like to do is interesting stuff rather than boring, repetitive stuff.
Yep.
And so the goal is to free up their time so they can do something that makes a difference to the students at the school district rather than spending all their time banging away at the storage.
Yeah. It's as cool as storage is nowadays. We don't want to mess with storage, right? You just want to turn it on and have it work. It's a hard drive at the end of the day, so to speak. Just let it do its job. I shouldn't have to configure it and mess with it. Let it do its job. And it sounds like that's what you guys are doing. So that's cool. Can you tell us what couldn't you do, or what you can do now that you couldn't do prior to putting it in Pure?
Well, we can actually log in quickly now. As I kind of said before, it was taking up to, say, 10 minutes for a class of 25 to get logged in.
10
Now,
minutes.
it went from that to 30 seconds or less. The applications started screaming. The desktops were screaming. We also, not only threw VDI, we threw other applications, say like SQL on there, just for example, and that was a world of difference there. And this is all running all together, and we've converged multiple technologies, not just VDI, and it didn't even blink. And my regular storage is kind of gives you the finger a little bit, per se.
Yeah. Very interesting. So have you guys moved most of your infrastructure over to the Pure storage?
Well, we were choosy about it. We were choosing which ones. It all comes down to what your customer can handle with slowness or speed. We decided SQL needs to be fast.
Yeah.
VDI needs to be fast. Our monitoring system was a little sluggish. I put it on Pure. It's fast. It handles a lot now. And so just specific things. But everything else that was acceptable the way it was, of course, stayed on classic storage.
Yeah. Are there differences now between how you managed, how you managed VDI before and after adding Pure?
Yeah, it's just we can create new LUNs and spin things up just so much quicker. With the disk storage, everything has to live in Tier 1 in order for it to function. And if any part of that goes to Tier 3, it takes up to 25 minutes just to clone a server in VMware. And on Pure, it took, I think it was 3 seconds.
Wow.
Each time. So we could just the ease and speed of just creating new environments was just super easy at that point.
I'll chime in here. I've never seen Marvin so giddy about a product, and I mean in the most fantastic way. I've been in the district just about over 3 years, and I've never seen Marvin so excited about a product. For so many reasons, like Marvin touched on, the speed at which he can now process things, kind of what Joel talked about with. It's almost not, I would say almost just to set it and forget it. I can count on one hand or maybe a few fingers how many times Marvin's actually had to go look at this thing because it was doing something. And in fact, support was already contacting us before he got a chance to catch it. I mean, that's how fanatical their support is and responsiveness to anything that goes on with the system, which again, it's hardly at all. So I want to chime in.
What do you mean by that support? You mean pure storage or Pure support?
Pure storage support. Yeah, they're actively monitoring our appliances across the district, and if a controller goes wacky or a drive fails, they're calling us and they're emailing Marvin.
Wow.
Before he gets a chance to catch it.
Joel, can you talk a bit about that? Well, what do you guys do there? That's an interesting. You guys you don't just sell them the appliance; you continue to actively support it. I mean, that's strange.
Well, you mentioned earlier this change towards with Moore's law and change to the cloud, and the way the business is changing for all of us in IT. Well, Pure is in part harnessing that as a part of our support offering. So we do big data analytics on the back end from instrumentation out at our customers. So if you're one of our customers, you can choose to be a part of our proactive support, which means the device will phone home and give us some regular information on its own status. Our support team monitors that information. It builds sort of an anonymized fingerprint of your device, and then we run a significant amount of analytics on our cloud on the back end, and we can determine, for example, if someone on the other side of the world has a fingerprint that looks a lot like yours and is having some sort of a challenge that we can resolve. Maybe it's a compatibility issue with one of your workloads. Maybe it's we think that there might be some kind of a security concern based on the configuration our device is telling us you have. We can find the others that look like you and help them. So think of it this way, right? We've got thousands of arrays out there in the world, and they are all being used to make the one array that you're running better, right? Yeah. All those other people are helping you. And so we crowdsource all this information about how the array is doing, do analytics, and we can help. On the very basic level, If the array is going to throw an alert, it's going to throw it to us at the same time it throws it to Chris and his team. And if it's something that we can help with, we'll send you an email or ring you up if that's appropriate and tell you how to fix it. And we can do software upgrades and things like that for you remotely. And those types of upgrades and changes, for the most part, not only can be done without any disruption to your system, and that's our guarantees that we're non-disruptive, but for the most part, without any performance impact as well. So your users won't notice it. You can do it in the middle of the day during production without any blips.
That's phenomenal. I absolutely love big data. I did a talk a couple nights ago at a users group talking about the big three things that are changing our world, and those being mobility, which is, everything's mobile's changed everything. Internet of Things, which is, connecting things that we've never imagined would ever be connected before and still can't imagine what's going to be connected. And then big data, and all those feed big data, right? And it's just phenomenal. And you guys are using that to give better support and service and just usability back to your customers. That is so cool. I love that so much. Just phenomenal. So, Chris and Marvin, if you could give me maybe three gotchas that you could share with somebody that's looking into VDI and storage that you guys ran across. It doesn't have to be three. It could be two. It could be five. But give us some of the good, the bad, and the ugly, or maybe just the bad and the ugly that you guys ran across, and how to prevent those.
All right. Well, as we've been talking about, I would definitely go SSD. That was the big gotcha for us. But like I said, just how are you going to use it, and what is acceptable to the end user? Can you repurpose existing systems, or do you have to buy new points, or clients, or whatnot? And do you have enough manpower to support what you're trying to achieve?
Did you guys have to increase it seemed like you didn't have to do anything. Do you put this in and made everything better, like less work? And you even have the Pure guys doing support for you. That's just so awesome. So yeah. Manpower was not an issue for you guys. It was less manpower.
Exactly. It was much easier to maintain everything, per se, without adding any kind of staff, or actually we lost staff during some of this process, and we're still able to keep up.
That's phenomenal. That's never the case. So that is really, really phenomenal. So you said acceptable to end users, and that's one of the biggest things when, if you're talking to an old Citrix guy, it's all about the end user, because we touch the end user directly, right? It's not just, think of storage, you think of, just us dealing with us, and not something that the end users deal with, but it directly impacts the end user. Can you talk a bit about what their experience was like? From the first time you rolled it out, maybe some of the feedback the users would give you, were they happy, were they grumbling? And then, of course, when you put it in Pure, and then what's it like nowadays? Are they, have they embraced this new technology? Are they maybe some use cases where they're using it, things like that?
Yeah, I think they've definitely embraced what we've done with it. The first year we had Citrix, they basically complained so much about it being so slow, and that half their class time was lost, and just a whole list of complaints in that fashion, that they just wanted their old desktop back. And we didn't give it back. We tried to fix this, we tweaked that, we looked at the VM and took things off of it that was taking up CPU and memory, so it would be more dedicated to their functionality in the classroom. And over time, it got bigger and bigger and slower, and then when we migrated it to Pure, we started asking, what do you think now? Oh, we quit using it. Well, could you give it a shot again? Well, they logged in, they go, wow, this is better than my desktop now, and they've been using it.
That's wonderful.
So we've got them back on that track, and they're, from what I can tell, they're really happy now.
Pure Networks with Citrix XenDesktop. This is better than my desktop now.
Yeah, we do get that frequently. Maybe Sagnik has some feedback here too as well, but I think VDI has really changed in how it's deployed over the last 4 or 5 years. First, early on, enterprises in particular used to give virtual desktops to sort of their admins or their call centers, and often cases sort of their lower paid employees, right?
Yep.
And now, particularly in enterprise, it's it's increasingly their highest paid employees, people who are doing CAD CAM work and using like a virtualized graphical workstation, or they're high productivity traders on a financial floor, or students who absolutely just need to make it work, right? Like in the school district. So it's gone from being sort of this tier 2, tier 3 workload to being really a tier 1 workload. And the productivity in a hospital, positive patient outcomes, in a school district, learning outcomes are now really dependent upon it. And so it just has to run, and it has to run really well. I don't know what the demographics are like in your part of San Antonio area in Texas, guys, but I was recently talking to a school out here in California, and their students are mostly aren't English as first language speakers, mostly very low income, and they can't even afford to have a PC in the house, right? So they need that virtual desktop to even be able to attend university.
And that actually brings me to the next question I wanted to ask is, are you guys allowing people to use this anywhere, anyplace, anytime? Can a student connect from home into their virtual desktop?
Yes, it's not exactly the same desktop, but it does provide access to internet applications, their H drive, so they are able to function from home.
That's very cool. That is really, really cool. The school's changed so much since I was there so many years ago. It's I can't. We had the IBM PC came in, and I thought it was the greatest thing ever. So no longer is it. It's that way even remotely close. It's just I can't imagine having the ability to get my work anywhere, anyplace, anytime out of school. That's just phenomenal. So I have to ask. Almost, we're going to wind this thing down. I do have a couple more questions for Joel, but that being said, if Chris, Marvin, if somebody recommend, if a colleague or somebody out there listening said, hey, would you recommend doing VDI in a school? Would you recommend using Pure for your VDI storage? Is this the direction we need to go? What would your response be?
I would say definitely yes. Before we looked at Pure, I would have said shop around for your VDI, shop around for a lot of tier 1 storage, and now it's just, go VDI, get Pure as the back end, you'll be happy.
Perfect. Did you save money doing it too? I mean, you bought something new. Do you think in the process that actually saved you money?
I'm going to chime in and say yes. Simply, as we've talked about through this conversation, the amount of man hours or staff hours involved with maintaining this appliance we've instantly recouped the cost of what the initial appliance costs. I mean, because Marvin's time, he's my engineer. He's my most senior level person as far as from a knowledge base, and his time is better spent on other tasks. So that's time that I'm not taking away from him. From the rest of my team, again, having to stay abreast or learn new how to manage this particular appliance. It's not there because it's so easy that I can do it in comparison. So yeah, I think it's totally worth the investment. We've had nothing but a positive experience with Pure as a whole. So I would always advocate something like Pure because they've done nothing but make our lives so much more pain-free.
That's what IT is about. IT is about making your life pain-free. And that sounds so cliche, but it truly is. What is IT there for? It's to provide a service to our users. And that service needs to be as pain-free as possible. And it needs to be better than what they had. And then I always like to say a user has a benchmark. We all have benchmarks, IOPS, what have you, right? But a user has one, and that is they might have a PC at home. They probably do. And they expect their work PC or their school PC or whatever to be better than that because they have experts managing it and deploying it and selling it to them, right? And if you can't provide that, then, you got some disgruntled people out there wondering, why am I paying for this or why am I working here or what have you? So it sounds like you guys, once you went to Pure and XenDesktop, you were able to provide them a better service. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what we're here for, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. So, okay. Is there anything we left out, Joel, Joel, I'm going to get to you, and I have two more questions for you, Joel. But Chris, Marvin, anything else about your experience you'd like to talk about real quickly? Anything I might have left out that you want to bring to the attention of our viewers or listeners?
Well, I will say that we did have a third NOC, Network Operations Center, and it was always considered the redheaded stepchild, no offense to anyone. And it had a 3 terabyte, 12 disk storage system. It was our tiniest little NOC. And we put VDI in there, and it died over and over and over. It just couldn't handle it. And that system got replaced with one Pure box. So it now runs VDI. It runs our DHCP, our servers, file services, all at the same time from one area. And that's a third of our district right there. So that was one awesome change that we got to do, because that storage system that was in place was just, it couldn't handle what it was actually trying to do to begin with. So that was a shining accomplishment for me. And it's basically, we virtualized everything in there. There's no physical servers other than my hosts. And so it was just, I can't say anything else about it. It was just awesome.
You are giddy, aren't you?
Oh, very.
There's nothing like technology that makes your life better, right? Especially when you've gone through the pain. Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
And it's now become a really nice network operations center instead of the one that always breaks.
That's cool. That's cool. That is and it was an afterthought too, right? I mean, this wasn't what you guys didn't plan to fix this thing. It was sort of wow, we could probably fix this with this technology too.
Yeah.
That's
no, I didn't.
Awesome.
We knew we were going to put VDI on it. I just didn't tell Chris that I had done some other things to it. Figured it out.
He does that a lot.
But by the time I told him, he was like, "You did what?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just shut off that other thing," and everything's still going. So
awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so Joel, I have a couple more questions for you, and these are, I always end up my podcasts with 2 questions. That's competition in the future. So this is, I want to ask you, and really, the guys, we've talked about this in the entire podcast, but I'll ask you pointedly. There's a lot of guys out there doing what you guys do. Storage just exploded in the past 10 years, right? Why should someone care about what you're doing versus the competition that says the same thing that you say?
My answer to that would be that there aren't a lot of guys out there that do what we do, particularly in VDI, particularly around data reduction and simplicity. Those are places where Pure is just absolutely going to shine. But I wouldn't take our word for it, honestly. Try it. We're not the number one most recommended, technology vendor for no reason. What I would say is, it's for my personal career, it's incredibly gratifying to work at Pure Storage, because, like the guys at Judson are saying, this is not an anomaly for us. People put in our systems and they really like them. So my take on this, my primary guidance for someone who is looking at a XenDesktop project is to try the alternatives out there. We're pretty confident that, if you try Pure, you're going to find that benefit both in, data reduction, linear scalability, reliability, but mostly what you're going to be is really happy to use it. And you'll understand what we mean when we say it's simpler and easier to use.
Perfect. And then for my very last question, well, actually I have one more question, but that's the easiest question of all. But for my last question, real question, future. So we talked about what you guys have today, how it's being used out there in the real world and things like that. But is there anything you can talk about maybe, that's coming in the future, things that could get Marvin even more excited than he already is?
Absolutely. So we spoke about Moore's Law earlier, and that is not going to change. So what you will see is a pervasiveness of solid-state storage solutions in the world, right? They're already in our phones. They're in our laptops. They're now in our data center for our Tier 1, in a lot of cases, Tier 2 workloads. And at Pure, we believe that the solid-state storage will eventually, take over the data center, take over the world with solid-state. There's no reason to run little tiny record players spinning around like crazy in your data center anymore. It's too slow. It takes too much power and too much space. So the future we see for Pure is a future of solid state going everywhere. Another interesting sort of direction we see going is absolutely a cloud direction. And you'll see solid state and Pure Storage in particular as the underpinning of private clouds and public clouds going forward. And we've got a bunch of customers doing that today, but we think that that is absolutely going to explode over the next few years as people direct themselves to hosted private clouds, fully private clouds, public cloud, and everything in between.
Perfect. And then for my easiest, the last question, and that is, if somebody wants to learn more, what do they need to do?
The unsurprising answer of go to purestorage.com. But there's a couple of other interesting ways as well. The guys at Judson talked about putting more than just XenDesktop on our devices and running VDI next to other workloads. So if you do go to purestorage.com, there is a paper there on our VDI pages that talk about putting a whole business or a whole bunch of workloads all together on a single device. And it's done by ESG and a third party. And what they did is essentially validated its data reduction, its reliability, et cetera, in those types of environments. So that's really interesting and pretty important. Another really great way to learn more would be to attend our user conference, Accelerate, which is coming in March 2016. So again, if you go to purestorage.com, you can register for and attend that. And you'll hear a lot from industry leaders all over the world talking about some of these thorny IT projects or IT issues that have come up. It's a different kind of a conference than the ones you've probably attended before. We're not going to stand on stage and wave our arms at you, but instead what we're doing is we're bringing together a lot of folks like the CIOs that are in your job, or the storage people who are in your job, or the directors of IT that are doing our jobs, and sitting down together and talking through, how do I deal with cloud? Right? What does mobility mean to my business? How do I get through some of these big shifts, big changes that are taking place in our industry? So that would be an interesting thing to attend. Again, the info is on purestorage.com.
Perfect. Joel, Chris, Marvin, Sagnik, thank you guys so much. Sagnik, is there anything else you'd like to add from the Citrix Ready side of things?
No, I think Joel and everybody has pretty much covered the customer point of view, and I'm pretty much looking forward for this conference that Joel mentioned.
Yeah, Citrix will be there. And Sagnik, you mentioned earlier too, the second rev of the Citrix Capacity Program is coming soon. That's
Yes.
going to be a very interesting bit of information for people interested in buying systems for use with XenDesktop.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So we'll look forward for that as well, which will be on Citrix Ready page. So we're launching a VDI capacity program, phase 2, which will showcase customers for different workloads like 1,500 users, 3,000 users, and 5,000 user workload, and what all partners, vendors you can use and choose from multiple storage plays that we have today.
Perfect. Guys, thank you so much for your time today. We went right at an hour, which is perfect. I always say that the better podcasts last a longer time because there's just a lot of fun things to talk about. So listeners out there, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode today. It's a little bit of a challenge, four different people on the line with me. I think that might be the most I've ever had. Usually we have one or two or maybe three, but four, just more the merrier, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely head over to purestorage.com and check out what these guys are doing. Like Joel said, they're not the most recommended for no reason. And I've heard it myself over and over. So this is really great stuff. And again, thanks to the Citrix Ready team for making this possible. And you know what, Citrix Ready guys, we need to do one, just you and I, and talk about the program and these new things that are coming to market too. So it's amazing. I've been actually working with the Citrix Ready. I did my first podcast with you guys years ago, and so much has changed since day one. It's Citrix Ready. So if you guys are, for the listeners, check out what they're doing, because they're not just validating apps or solutions because someone pays them. They're doing this to make your lives a lot better. And on that note, we'll go ahead and call this a podcast. So I'll just throw out, if there's anything else anybody ever wants to say it now or forever hold your peace, right? Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay, so that concludes another successful episode of DABCC Radio. As always, I want to thank my guests for today. Pure Storage and Joel and Chris and Marvin and Sagnik from Citrix Ready. Guys, you guys made this a successful episode. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I can't believe what Pure Storage is able to do. 5-minute load times down to just a few seconds. I mean, this is just phenomenal. And again, the number one recommended solution in the IT world. That says a lot, right? Who doesn't want that? So definitely check that out, purestorage.com. And again, guys, thank you so much for making this a successful episode and sharing your experiences with Pure, Chris and Marvin. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And, of course, for Citrix Ready for making this happen. And we have another one in the hopper. Can't wait to do it. Or can't wait to release it. It's already done, guys. We just need to get that out to you. So, again, thanks for everyone who made this episode a success. But thanks mostly to each and every one of you guys for listening to DABCC Radio. Believe it or not, this will be our 10th year, 2016, of podcasting. Can you believe 10 years? And what's even more amazing is DABCC.com turned 17 years old. We're the oldest independent Citrix virtualization cloud site in the world. We were the very first independent people, or I was the very first independent guy out there promoting Citrix technologies in a formal sense. And way back in January 12th, 1999. Before anybody else out there, besides a handful, got to give credit where credit is due, handful of really dedicated Citrix employees, Dillinger being one, that was just phenomenal. Flanagan, David Kim, just some great content back in those early days. And then came DABCC, and we've been going strong ever since. 2016 is going to be phenomenal. And so one of the things I wanted to share with you is some of the new stuff we're doing at DABCC. For one, we have a really amazing video site. You guys got to check this. This is brand new. It's called videos.dabcc.com. I released it about mid-year, and the result, or the fanfare has been phenomenal. The results have been phenomenal. The feedback has been phenomenal. I think you guys will really love it. Again, that's videos.dabcc.com. And what you're able to do is go there and see info from everybody. Pretty much, if you're in the IT space, you're on IT videos. And if you're not on IT videos, let me know. Just drop me a line, dbrown@dabcc.com, and I'll make sure you guys are added. But it's that simple. You just head on over to the site, and you can see what's new each and every day. So within just a few seconds, you can see what's new. And it's that simple. In fact, we have one of the features I really love personally is the Daily Digest. So you can sign up to have an email delivered to your inbox, and that Daily Digest will show up in your inbox, and it lists only what's been released the past 24 hours. So at noon Eastern time, you get this email, and you can look at it and say, well, this is really great. Here's 3 videos I want to watch. One is 2 minutes, another one's 2 minutes, and another one is 5 minutes or whatever. So in 9 minutes, you're able to catch up with what was released that day and not miss anything ever. And the amount of intelligence you get, the amount of knowledge and just, wherewithal of what's new within the industry is just amazing. You don't have to go look for it. We bring it directly to you. So definitely head on over to IT Videos. That's videos.dabcc.com. We're also on Twitter at Top IT Videos. And sign up for the Daily Digest, and you don't even have to visit the site. It'll bring it to you. You click, and boom, it's playing the video. It's that simple. So, again, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for making DABCC a success, making videos.dabcc a success. In 2016, we turned 17, and finally, after way too many years, we have a brand new infrastructure for dabcc.com coming. Built from the ground up. It is beautiful, guys. Truly, truly beautiful. I spent a lot of time making sure it's beautiful, functionally perfect. And so that's coming in early 2016, very early 2016. I just need to finish it off. So I'm excited, as you can tell. I'm always excited about what I do because we're in the best industry in the world, aren't we? So on that note, please tell a friend about DABCC Radio. DABCC Radio. Tell them about the videos. Tell them about DABCC.com. And just tell them about how great IT is in general and how much you love what you do. So what else do I say? Happy New Year to each and every one of you guys. And again, thanks to my guest today, Pure Storage, Citrix Ready, Chris and Marvin. What do I say? Thanks, guys, for listening to DABCC Radio.
Can you say DABCC?
DABCC.
Say it again, DABCC.
DABCC.
Can you say it again, DABCC?
DABCC.
How about DABCC?
DABCC.
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 DABCC.